I really hope this is focusing on my face, because if it's not, I'm fucked. And I need another camera for like filming like this, because I can't see the way it looks right now, and I have no idea if it's like focused or if I'm like properly in view. Anyway, this is, yeah, not the best, but we're just gonna have to do it like this. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I really love poetry, but I mostly read, like as a kid I read a lot of more modern poetry too, but like poetry for children, that's a whole other category, it's a whole other genre altogether. So I read that, and then I mostly read more classic poetry. So it's like, I'm gonna try some contemporary poems and poets and see how I feel about them. I'm gonna make it a little bit of an experiment and like read a few collections and compare them and see how I feel about the genre, because it's like such a broad genre. You have contemporary poets who write in such a style that it feels more classical, and then you have ones you call insta poetry, like Rupikar and stuff, who have these short poems with really simple language often, but like very beautifully said. Like she uses beautiful words and a lot of imagery to bring across a broader topic, which is really interesting, but she's not really my vibe. But it's still really interesting to see if I like that kind of poetry from other writers. So anyway, I bought 4 poetry collections from modern contemporary poets that I have not read anything from before, so I didn't know them at all. I just read the descriptions and I was like, yeah, let me try this one. Or I saw the cover and I was like, yeah, this is pretty, you know, I'm shallow like that. I was like, this is a pretty cover, I'm just gonna add this to my TBR, and I picked the 4 that I was most interested in, and I read those, and now I'm gonna talk about those. It's gonna be really boring, but you have to sit through it because you're probably my friend and you're watching this to do me a favor. Books. Anyway, here they are. I got these 4 collections. First one is The Girl Aquarium by Jen Campbell. Yeah, this is the ugliest cover from all of them, but I had seen some of her YouTube videos where she read her own poetry, and I was like, I like this, so I wanted her collection. And the next one I got was The Trees by Heather Christle. Yeah, I'm in love with this cover. I don't know why I'm telling you what I think about the covers, but I am. Next one I got was Bright Dead Things by Ada Limón. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. I'm so fucking sorry if I pronounce it wrong. But anyway, look at this fucking gorgeous cover. It's beautiful. It's everything I ever want in a minimalistic cover. Anyway, the last one I got is Falling Awake by Alice Oswald, and also fucking beautiful. So I was like, if I don't like these poems, these covers will still be like stunning and worth to buy, because I like aesthetic things, and even if it's not good, it's still gonna be really pretty to look at, and I like that kind of stuff. So yeah, win-win situation, because I liked all of these poems. Spoiler alert. Anyway, let's talk about Jen Campbell first. Okay, how do I go about this? I haven't thought about this at all. Like, I have thought about what I think about these poems, but I haven't thought about how I'm gonna tell you what I think about these poems. She has, let me see, yeah, 3 sections in this collection. So you can see like the first section with a bunch of poems, second section with a bunch of poems, third section with a bunch of poems. My pretty notes. Wow, so professional. Anyway, I rated this 4 out of 5 stars, I think, mostly because I had trouble like processing some of the poems that were written in her dialect. How do I even explain any of this? I knew like that I was born different, tall, sea, lighthouse heights, and my eyes was a warning, flashing cinemas, across the grasses, lasses, all of them tearing flames out of their bleeding hair. Like that's really beautiful, but it's also really difficult to read because of the accent, and she does that in like a lot of her poems. I don't know why, so I'm not judging it. Like I know why she uses this kind of language and this accent, and it really works. But on my first read, as I wasn't into a poetry at all, it was just the first time I read it, so it was difficult for me to get into, and that's why I didn't really grasp the meaning behind some of these poems, because I was too busy focusing on like trying to understand the dialect and reading the actual words without understanding like the meaning behind it, and that's why it was difficult for me. A difficult reading experience actually, just, but I do really like this, so I think I will just reread it again, but like slowly, and just take my time with each poem again, and just like really try to get to the bottom of what it all is about. And I think maybe my rating might even go up, because these are just really fucking good. Like even the ones that I didn't understand and then I just kind of glossed over, I just really love the imagery that she uses. It's fucking beautiful, it's profound, it's original, like she's so creative with her word choice, and it also just really works with the overall vibe of her poems. So if I reread this, I'm sure I'm gonna find like even more meaning into all of her word choices and all of her metaphors and imagery, so I'm really excited for this. Anyway, all of these poems are about being a girl and being a woman, womanhood, and just how it is to grow up as a girl, all the things that you have to go through, how you see yourself through the lens of society, how society views you, but how that is often really morbid, and how men see you and how you see yourself after they've seen you. And then also most of these poems are about disability, and lots of different kinds of disabilities are being talked about in these poems, and it's done so beautifully. Lots of these poems are very morbid. They're very blunt in a misguided way. Like for example, she uses so much beautiful language. She uses these metaphors, this imagery that's really beautiful. But then when you look at the meaning of the beautiful words, it's really morbid, and it's really like, damn, this is dark. Her main metaphors are disability and womanhood and girlhood, but also water and the sea. She loves the sea, you can tell. She grew up by the sea. This author grew up by the sea. She loves it. She uses it in almost all her poems. One, she uses water and the seaside and the coast a lot as metaphors, which I'm all here for. I love that. I love me some water metaphors, because water has so many possibilities. She uses the metaphor of describing girls or parts of girls' bodies as fish, parts of fish and sea creatures, which was so interesting. Like you can tell from the title, The Girl Aquarium. Yeah, but she does that in some of her poems, and it's so beautiful. Wait, let me find an example. This is The Girl Aquarium. It's a really long poem, so I'm not gonna read it, but this is filled with these metaphors of water and girlhood and girls and fish and sea creatures. and basically how people watch girls as if they're fish, as if they're fish in an aquarium. So many layers to this poem. I'm not gonna read all of it because it's kind of long. Here she does it again. I'm skipping over the beginning of the poem. Then she says, I cup my palms. Little fishling, I wonder if we should roll her hair like starfish. Watch it flicker the color of raspberry plum. And then most of her metaphors of girls being fish have to do with disability as well. I don't think I mentioned it before, but like in one of the poems she basically says like people look at these girls as if they're just half nothing, like because they're missing parts and they're just swimming about, just not the same as us. I cannot explain this. Other main metaphors that she uses: fruit, forest, woods, ground, the earth. Also freak show, circus, again to explain how people see these disabled people as if they're just freaks, as if they're just like something to look at, to laugh at, to like they're not really normal people, and that's really powerful. Also body parts, skeletons, bones, because again people see these disabled girls as just bodies with body parts that are different or that are missing, and not as actual people with a soul. They just look at their body parts, and that's also how these girls often see themselves, I think, because that's what they're told to do. And also she uses a lot of reflections on childhood, and I love metaphors where you use like things that happened in your childhood and how that shaped you like as a person. And the thing I noticed with this collection upon the first read is that most of these poems are about being the odd one out, like you're being seen as different, or you see yourself as different from the rest of the world and the people. We spent the whole collection kind of defending our otherness and kind of either not liking it, not accepting it, or defending it towards other people. But what's interesting is that by the end of the collection, in the third part, there are a lot of really beautiful poems that kind of say like, no, this is who I am. They're really fierce, and they stop like defending their otherness, and they're more like accepting it and embracing it, and more like not being so angry with the world anymore. If that's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's really fierce. It's really grounded. It's really like all of these girls have come into their own by the end of the collection, and they're women now, and they're just stamping their feet. That's the line that's in one of the poems. In this new world, there are forests and duck feet shoes. There is us there, waiting, our crown mouths full of feathers. We are stamping, 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 stamping our newborn feet. That's the very last bit of the collection. It's really beautiful. It's a lot about growing up. It's about these girls talking about how it feels to be a girl or a woman in this world, and it uses a lot of imagery of theater and circus and fairy tales and stuff like that, because they're being seen as other. What haven't I told you yet? I could talk about this collection for literally hours and hours, so I'm going to stop now because I've been talking for like almost half an hour about just this one alone, and I just realized how much editing I'm gonna have to do. Help me. Anyway, I gave this 4 out of 5, but I'm definitely going to read it again and see if I might even rate it higher. Definitely recommend this. I'm just going to read one of my favorites from this collection, just to give you an idea what it's about. Okay, so this one is called On Crucifixion. When we throw our arms out, we bellow. Near the ground, the bellboys bray, their elephant hats and misfit trousers. With the birds burning, I long for rooms, for rocks. My blindfolded mouth, they cannot see the half of me. They say that if the horse's head was tilted, we could be violence. Belted faces merged with sky, and we would stamp the windowed spirits. To see taste, it would be in white dresses, all the shades, my pinprick hat, my flammable legs. Them, tearing at my shoes and hoping for animal noises. My senses flown, my eyes chandeliers, and then below, stuffing me back into myself. The glass is white, the sky will feast. They scatter now, these painted beasts. I do not know where all the water goes. And still they do not look, they do not look, they do not look. So there's a lot in this poem. But this is really an example of what I said before. Like, she uses so beautiful words to say something so morbid and so dark. For example, as she's talking about what these boys are doing to her, she says, my senses flow, my eyes chandeliers, and then below, stuffing back into myself. The words like chandeliers and, you know, dresses and violence, all these beautiful words to say something so not beautiful. Okay, anyway, that's the first one. I think I've been talking for like more than half an hour about this collection alone. And like, it deserves that. But it's also boring for you guys. So I'm just gonna go on to the next one. I'm just gonna do them in the order that I read them. So I read this one first, and the next one I read is, I think, The Trees. Or was it this one? I think I read this one first. Yeah. Falling Awake by Alice Oswald. I gave this 5 stars. This is my favorite out of the 4 collections that I bought. This poet, like, I want to buy all of her other works now, because I'm sure I'm gonna love all of it. I love her writing style. I love just everything about it. I love it so much. I think this is one of my new favorite poets now, favorite writers in general. And like, look at that. See? This poem. All of these poems are my favorite, okay? Like, I have a few favorites in the whole collection, but they're all actually perfect. Like, there's not one single poem where I'm like, this could use a little more. My words are not doing this collection justice. In this collection she uses, I don't know if she does that with all her poems, but in this collection she uses nature as a metaphor. And nature poems is what I'm all about. It's my favorite kind of poems, especially the ones where you just describe like a really simple thing or detail in nature, like something that you can see and that's really beautiful, and use that as a metaphor to talk about something big in life, like death and love. You know what I mean? Yeah, just good poetry, just perfect poetry. And even as I was reading this, I just read this one poem, which is now my favorite in the whole collection. I read this poem and I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. I have to just read this out loud to my friend. And so I just recorded myself reading this poem out loud to her, because I was like, damn, you have to know about this poem, you have to hear it. It's fucking beautiful, okay? So, and I'm just gonna read it out loud to you guys, because everyone should know about the existence of the best poem I've probably ever read. My favorite out of this collection is called Looking Down. It's 24. Okay, looking down. Clouds, I can watch their films in puddles, passionate and slow, without obligations of shape and stillness. I can stand with wilted neck and look directly into the drowned corpse of a cloud. It is cold-blooded down there, precisely outlined as if under a spell, and it narrows to a weighted point which throws back darkness. Oh yes, there is a trembling rod that hangs my head above puddles, and the clouds like trapped smoke wander under me, and the sun lies discarded on the tarmac, like an old white shoe. Don't go on about those other clouds, those high prehistoric space ferns that steam the windows of the wind. I know I could look up and see them, curled like fossils in troposphere, but I am here. I have been leaning here a long time, hunched under the bone lintel of my stair, with the whole sky dropped and rippling through my eye, and now a crown on a glass lens slides through the earth. So this is, you can tell a person looking into a puddle, looking at the reflection of the sky and the clouds, and basically saying that they love doing that more than looking at the actual sky, which you could take further and say, what does that mean? What is she trying to tell us? Does she prefer the reflection of something because it's not the real thing? For example, she says, I can stand with wilted neck and look directly into the drowned corpse of a cloud. So like the corpse of a cloud. It's not the actual cloud. It's like a drowned corpse because it's in a puddle, it's drowned. It's so beautiful. There's also the way this is structured. This line is really beautiful. The sunlight is discarded on the tarmac like an old white shoe. The way you have to kind of slow down. You can really see the sun reflected in this puddle on the tarmac. You can really just see it before you, and it's such a beautiful imagery. I don't have a lot to say about this, even though it's my favorite from all of these. It's just so perfect that I don't have words in my mind to describe it. This one. Next on our is this one. The Trees by Heather Christle. This one is a little different. How I'm gonna talk about this. There's some poems in here that I really, really love, and then there's some that just didn't work for me, didn't stick with me. There's some that are too abstract for me, for my tiny little brain to grasp. I'm gonna have to reread those. But like most of these themes that she talks about are really normal, everyday things. Through her poetry, she talks about living with your partner, love, stuff like that. Like what you're doing and how you feel about just being alive. Making phone calls, having a social circle. But it's really interesting because I've never seen the poems that are structured this way before. She doesn't have line breaks, but instead she just puts a big space between the lines where the breaks would be if you entered. I love the way it looks, and I like the way it reads too, because you can still tell where every line is, but you can read it all the way through. It gives you kind of this vibe, like you're reading someone's thoughts. At least that's what it feels like to me. That's the vibe I'm getting. Yeah, it's difficult for me to talk about this because lots of things just went over my head. And lots of things I felt like this is just really not that beautiful, because it's just really like a simple story and it's nothing special, and there's probably something in there that just has to connect with you at a certain time, you know, like some novels you have to read them at a certain time and then you just get it, and otherwise it just kind of doesn't, you don't care for it. And I think it's the kind of like that with these poems. Like if I read them again another time, maybe some of these will connect with me, and maybe right now they don't, and maybe this will take a bit of time, you know. That's kind of how I feel about it. I did annotate most of them because I was trying to, really trying really hard. 3 question marks. I was trying really hard to like dissect them and understand what the author was trying to tell me. But I think with these kind of poems, I'm just gonna have to give them some time and just come back to them. I'm gonna read this poem because it's about loneliness and we be feeling that sometimes, okay? It's called Anywhere in Particular. I will leave this house and go out into the weather. There are only so many ways to get out. I will use the window as a shield and nothing can hurt me. I really like that line. I'm just gonna talk about it as I'm reading it because that's the way it is for me. I will use the window as a shield and nothing can hurt me. That's beautiful because I really relate to that feeling. I really know that feeling when it's like when you want to be in loneliness, when you want to get out of where you are, even if that's not a physical place that you just don't like. It can be a physical or mental place that you just want to get out of, and you use something to protect yourself, but actually it can't protect you. It just feels like nothing can hurt you as long as you're staying inside your car. You know what I'm saying? That's how it feels when you're feeling that way. Not rain, not migration. I need a truck. I need to drive forever down the highway, carrying nothing, going out to meet the owls. Hello owls. On a man-made hill. Hello men. You dead men beneath a separate weather. And now I am back in the truck, reliable, plain. I could drive across Nebraska and no one would notice. I don't need to hide at all anymore. Something in the night sky changed, so slightly. I have to pay attention, and yes, their bows are ahead of the sound. There is no one to tell. I tell the truck, I tell Nebraska I'm leaving, that there are a million ways out. One day I will live on an island, all the time. I will send out a parcel when the mailboat arrives. Look, empty mailboat, now you are full. So, the end of this poem, I kind of understand that she's trying to get out of it, like that bad mental state, like she's trying to find a purpose. For example, this line, one day I will live on an island, but there's a line break between I will live and on an island, which is trying to tell me that she's not living right now, or it doesn't feel that way. But one day I will live on an island all the time. She will live all the time. Like right now, she's not living all the time. I will send out a parcel when the mailboat arrives. Look, empty mailboat. Now you are full. Now you're full probably means like now I have a purpose. Now I have a purpose in my life. Now I know why I'm living, and I'm living all the time. I kind of think that's what it means. Maybe that's not what it means at all, but that's what it meant to me, and it's really resonated with me. I think a lot of people feel this way at least once in their lives, and when you just kind of have to go somewhere, even if that's not physically, and to get there, you know. But yeah, next one. This is the last collection. I've been talking for almost an hour. This one, oh, I forgot to say how much I rated this one. I think 3 and 3.5 stars, just because, like I said, some of them didn't resonate with me, but it doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate them. Like, I think his writing style, it's beautiful. I definitely appreciate the craft that went into these poems. So 3.5, but yeah, last one I read. This one I liked the least. I don't remember, I think I gave this 3 stars. I just went down the stairs because I thought I heard something, but I hope I didn't, because nobody's supposed to be home except me. I made notes, great, because I don't know what to say about it. With most of her poems, she takes a quiet moment, like a simple quiet moment in her life, and she adds a lot of thoughts to it. I think everyone who reads this can at least get a few poems out of it that just really work for them, and there's just some that just really don't. So I'm gonna read this one to you, because this is also one of my favorites from this collection. It's really beautiful. It's called What It Looks Like to Us and the Words We Use. All these great barns out here in the outskirts, black creosote boards knee-deep in the blue grass. They look so artfully abandoned, even in use. You say they look like arks after the seas dried up. I say they look like pirate ships, and I think of that walk in my valley where Jay said, "You don't believe in God?" And I said, "No, I believe in this connection we all have to nature, to each other, to the universe." And she said, "Yeah, God." And how we stood there, low beasts among the white oaks, Spanish moss and spider webs, obsidian sharks struck out in the pockets, woodpecker flurry, and I refused to call it so. So instead, we looked up at the unruly sky, its clouds in simple animal shapes we could name, though we knew they were really just clouds, disorderly and marvelous, and ours. How she tries to tell us through this poem that you have different words for the same feelings, you know, same universal feelings, and how the world is so beautiful, and sometimes it just feels like it's all yours or all ours when you're with someone, and that feels like that for everyone, and still it feels like that, you know. And I just really love the descriptions she uses in this poem, like Spanish moss, spiderwebs, obsidian shards stuck in our pockets, woodpecker flurry, and stuff like that. It's really beautiful. I love that kind of language. Yeah, she just really just talks in her poems about feelings and how, you know, she's reflecting a lot on just her life. Not all of them are my favorite, but they're all really good. So overall, yeah, this was a good experiment. This really made me more open to contemporary poets. It made me want to read more of all their works, and made me want to read more poetry in general, and more try out more works from just different poets. And also, it's a good exercise. The more poetry I read, the easier for me it becomes to understand it and to analyze it and to like find a rhythm in it, you know. So this was a good experiment, because I didn't expect to love all of these. I was really hesitant about these, and I loved all of these a lot. So it's my favorite. 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3.5 and 3 stars. So